Hi, I'm Stu Kagan, and welcome to Born Scrappy, the podcast for scrap metal exporters and traders. Join me in conversation with some of the most experienced traders and operators that have helped shape this incredible industry. In today's maintenance masterclass, I'm chatting with Justin Trentadue. Justin is Vice President of Operations at Coastal Waste and Recycling in Florida. But more related to this special episode, he's also the founder of Uptime PM, an innovative tech solution for vehicle and plant maintenance management. Justin is a problem solver and is currently solving a problem he experienced firsthand. In today's episode, we talk about flaws in the current maintenance reporting process, having a middle person handling the noise, when red flags fall on deaf ears, the value of data, and so much more. So let's jump into this masterclass with Justin. But first, intro. Hey Justin, how are you?
What's going on, Stu? I'm good. How are you, man?
Yeah, man, I'm excellent. Having a great week. So super positive. Things are going well. How are you? What's going on your side?
Nothing. Just navigating the markets. Trying to keep everything going.
It's been fun the last few days, hasn't it?
It's been very fun the past few days. Hopefully, there's some optimism out there, but only time will tell.
Yeah, and with India coming back from Diwali, that should have a positive effect as well. Some people are talking about some freight rates dropping, so hopefully some positivity coming, some optimism on the water, which we all need at the moment. Has been a tough month.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it over the past couple of days. Actually, I mean, it's. I think there's some more. I think there's some positive pressure right now.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. It's what we all need. Just let's get into a little bit about what this masterclass is about. So what we're going to be talking about is, every month we do a masterclass where we really try add value to the listeners, and it's usually on a specific topic which we believe people will be interested to listen to and to try and get value. So what we're going to be talking about here is maintenance. Our industry has got massive amounts of capital out there, huge amount of equipment. Most companies have their own maintenance team. Some of them are made up of huge amount of people. Others might just have one guy who could be doing work on the equipment, but everybody's focused on maintenance. So give us a bit of a background on how you got into the industry and I guess what Uptime is all about and what brought you to build that.
Sure. So, I've been in the scrap industry or the recycling materials industry.
Very good.
For nearly 20 years. Started off trading, opened one of my own yards, started doing some operations type things. And, earlier on in my career, well, I would say about really 5 or 6 years ago, I had 2 yards and a bunch of employees. And, I just was struggling with trying to keep everything in order, maintenance wise. When did I last service the machine? Who's doing what? Couldn't hold them accountable. So I, kind of looked for some solutions out there, and I couldn't really find anything that really fit really well. And that's kind of what catapulted me to create Uptime PM. I'm just the dumb scrap guy, so I found someone who's a lot smarter than me, who could code and kind of put the code to keyboard, so to speak, and create an all-encompassing maintenance management platform, that was very highly customizable. And so, that's what I've done with Uptime PM is create a highly customizable, not one size fits all system to maintain, not only your heavy equipment, but your facilities and, any on-road sort of trucks that you have and trailers.
That's awesome. And it's great that you've built technology for our industry, from our industry. Lots of people try coming to this industry with a technology background and they don't necessarily get it right. So I think you having actually been in the industry and having spent 20 years, having experienced the pain yourself, no doubt you really can talk to this topic. So we'll delve into it and try and add some value as we go.
And if I might say, I think, what you're doing with Buddy, you're a person that's been in the industry, saw the pain points and tried to solve a problem. So I think there's a lot of similarities between you and I. I mean, different sort of things, but we're trying to solve a pain point that exists within the industry. Understanding that technology is very powerful today and can really help us out.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate that. Obviously, you are a user on Buddy, so you are selling on Buddy. So it's nice to hear that.
Sold today, actually.
Fantastic, mate. Thank you. Let's jump into the maintenance and programming, maintenance program essentials. Let's understand what is really needed out there in a maintenance program. So what are the key components of a successful maintenance program in your opinion?
Yeah, so when I look out there at the most successful companies and what they're doing, they really have about 5 things in common. And that's, I'll kind of touch on each of the topics, but I'll name the topics right now. And that's training, that's performing regular inspections, that's communication, data, and living a motto of constant or continuous improvement. So those are sort of the 5 key areas that all the most successful, best in class, I would say, companies are doing. So, when it comes down to training, you mentioned at the beginning, we have, equipment that is certainly hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, the acquisition cost for these pieces of equipment. So we have, our employees that are operating these pieces of equipment, responsible for production. So one of the best things you can do is to not only train these people how to properly operate them and safely operate them, but how to properly inspect the equipment, right? How to look at it. What are the key things that they should be looking at in terms of maintenance or preventative, these daily sort of checks that should be happening on our equipment. And that kind of segues into regular inspections, making sure that we're inspecting these assets on a daily basis, so we can catch those small problems before they become really big problems. The third thing, which is perhaps one of the most important, is communication. Communicating from the guy or gal that's operating the piece of equipment every day, making sure that issues are, relayed to maintenance staff and management, and then backwards, making sure that those issues are being addressed. So there's communication on all levels, right? And then we have data. The best companies are using data to make decisions, and it is a very key component on what are we doing with our assets, how much are they costing us, so on and so forth. And then the last thing is to realize that maintenance is not just like a one size fits all. This is our system and this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're always going to do it. People who don't change that, right? And so it is about continuous improvement, trying to remove unnecessary steps or insert steps to make sure all parties are accountable. Because at the end of the day, in our business, it's not a matter of if you're going to go down, it is when you go down, how fast can you get back up, right? So it's always about that improvement.
Yeah, there's so much gold in that. I mean, I've lived these experiences for so long. I think when you join at 18 years old, the first thing, you see is the huge amount of equipment that we have there. Whether it's material handlers and, like you said earlier, just trucks, the forklifts, whatever it is. Every yard has got some form of equipment. And I guess with the smaller the yards, the more pressure you can get under when you have equipment failures. And they also often don't have the systems in place to make sure that they, have the right preventative maintenance programs that are in place. But I look back at having 85 yards and 4,200 people. The amount of equipment we had in that business was massive. And the guys were feeding information with paper and pen. right? I mean, guys were like going into the yard and they had to fill out a checklist, and I mean, you could never actually hold anybody accountable because so something would go down. It's like, oh, when last did you check the oil? Did you check the grapple? Have you done any of the actual checks that you meant to? And it was easy for them to just say, yeah, of course I do. I do it every morning. But the papers and the filing, it never actually happened. So you could never actually deal with it. So I think there's a massive opportunity for what you're doing and what you've built. I think that's huge. But I think for everybody to understand the importance of it, and I think in our industry generally understand the importance of it, but are often very busy. And we get busy and it's hard to actually ensure that everybody is doing what they need to. Can you give us any like preventative maintenance example where you've seen kind of somebody who didn't do what was needed and the equipment failed or whatever it is, something that you haven't forgotten?
Yeah, I mean, blowing an engine because you're not checking the oil. It's when you go back to the pencil and paper method, people tend to, well, there's a couple things. People tend to pencil whip it, right? They say, I did it, whether that's laziness or they're just not good at their job. Or they're not reporting things anymore because it's fallen on deaf ears, right? The operators reported this 100 times on the piece of paper. There's something wrong, but the paper gets filed somewhere or stays in the cab. That communication is lacking and there's no connection, right? So yeah, I mean, people have blown motors, blown pumps because they haven't checked the oil levels. And there are ways to ensure that you can hold people accountable with technology. And if you don't have that technology, it requires a little bit more work actually. So I think the time that you spend, which is getting a manager or a mechanic's hands on that equipment every day, right? And that may not always be possible. So it's, how can you hold the people who are operating it every day accountable? But then again, that is also, you have to hold the maintenance staff and management accountable for following through. Because I have seen, believe it or not, and we all like to blame the operators for not reporting things. But I can tell you, in my experience, operators have reported things many, many times, and it's just fallen on deaf ears. So that just leads them to say, well, if they don't care, I don't care. And that's no way to run the company. So it's all about the company.
I mean, it's funny because having worked in the maintenance shop, like you're dealing with whatever's making the most noise, whatever the biggest problem is right now. When you have shredders, you're dealing with the shredder, right? Like that's where your focus is. So if somebody walks in and has a smaller issue, even if it's 5 days in a row, you often just don't deal with it because you've got other things that are way more pressing. Although when that goes down, it then becomes super difficult to deal with because you didn't do anything about it, for the past
it can also cost you a lot more money. A good example of this is a lot of our equipment nowadays has this tremendous built-in safety feature of a backup camera. How many people have been run over by a loader, unfortunately? So somebody reports a backup camera, right? You decide not to do anything about it. And now that operator is used to looking at that camera every day, not used to looking over his shoulder like they used to, and you don't fix that, and God forbid they run somebody over or they run into your building, right? So now you just cost yourself even more money because you didn't jump on a problem that could have really been solved. Maybe you didn't put the asset down. Maybe you're not in that position, but having the ability to catch these small problems before they become much larger problems for your company is absolutely paramount.
You spoke about it can cost you money, but your example was a perfect example of it's actually a health and safety issue. Like now your maintenance is having an effect on the safety of your people because the reverse camera isn't actually working. God forbid you drive into somebody, you could lose a life. Like, I mean, it's that serious. I've gone to many yards in the past and seen forklifts, their seatbelts don't work. And it seems so similar. It's like, well, hold on. Our maintenance team is not here to fix a seatbelt on a forklift because they're dealing with big, heavy equipment, right? And a lot of the time, well, what do you do? I mean, you're the operator. You go and you say, hey, my seatbelt isn't working. He goes, well, step in line. You're at the back of the queue. It just never gets fixed. So yeah, maintenance is a massive, massive part of what we do, and absolutely so vital. It's not just the cost; it's also the safety side of it as well, which a lot of people don't think about.
So that's interesting that you bring up the forklift seatbelt issue, which is extremely common, as you've said. But the second that you do have an accident in the yard, maybe it's not even an accident, maybe it's a fire. The first thing that OSHA will come into your yard and look at, I've seen it every time there's an accident or a fire. The first thing they look at is, let me see your forklift inspection, because those forklifts are actually regulated by OSHA as lift trucks. And they want us every time. It's one of the things, because they know that a lot of companies don't take it seriously and they don't have those inspections on file. So, having those inspections on file and fixing those problems if they're reported can lead to massive penalties. So there's a lot of benefit in having a good maintenance program, whether it's digital or not, to have that information on file.
Yeah, when that happens, I just hope I'm John Sacco at Sierra, because his forklifts they all look brand new. I'm like, come and inspect my forklifts any day of the week. You can eat a meal on them. He'll have the best time on this forklift. It looks brand new, but it's 7 years old. So, yeah, let's hope mine look like that one day when I'm big.
Love it.
And let's talk about saving some money, though. How can people save money with regards to their maintenance program? Where have you seen opportunities to save money?
Well, when you have a good preventative maintenance program, you can plan better. So you can start planning your downtime. So you're not reactive anymore. You're not waiting for a catastrophic failure in order, for a big problem, right? To say the cylinder needed to be repacked. You didn't buy the new cylinder. Well, now there's a catastrophic failure. The machine's down. So if you can have a good preventative maintenance program, maybe even have some parts on the shelf, you can save a lot of money and a lot of downtime. So again, kind of all circles back to understanding the problems, the small problems with your equipment before they become big problems. And of course, there's sometimes some infighting between production and maintenance. Production side is, you got to produce, but there you have to strike a good balance between production, of course, safety and maintenance. So, trying to become proactive, predictive instead of reactive will save you tons of money in the long run.
Man, I know that fight all too well. Like, it's it's production versus maintenance. I've said on, majority of the time on the production side, answering to executives, being an executive, answering to shareholders and being like, well, this month we're going to put down one of our shredders for the month because it's preventative maintenance. It's never a good month to do it. You're always striving to hit the targets. You're always trying to do better than the previous month or better than the previous year. But, there's no better time than yesterday to have actually done it. And the second best time is today. Like, you have to get it done, but there is so much pressure from everywhere else. But I think as soon as you put in context what you spoke about catastrophic failures, right? What that can look like, immediately it makes it all feel a little bit better and go through that little bit of pain for a better future or better next few months, right, or however long it's going to be, or whatever preventative work you're doing. Tell me, when it comes to data, I mean, George Adams was asked on the stage at the round table about data and how he's using data and how it's so important that, granted, he hands it over more to his kids to analyze it and utilize it more. And I think Tyler's kind of the guy running with that for SA. But he said he couldn't run a business like his without utilizing data to make decisions. How can people use data to optimize their operations when it comes to maintenance and what they're doing out there?
It's a good question. I mean, the very first thing that comes to mind is, how much am I spending on this piece of equipment actually, right? We tend to, work on our equipment, maybe a little bit older, and maybe you don't have a really good system, to really know and understand and have visibility into how much you're actually spending on an old piece of equipment. So if I have that information and I'm spending, let's just call it $10,000 a month on this, is it worth it to continue to pour money into this thing, or is it better to get rid of it or use it as a backup and buy a new asset? You can also use data and analytics to perhaps redeploy an asset from one facility where it's not being used very much to another facility where it's needed, right? And finally, everybody in the yard, all the managers, all the operators, they all want brand new equipment. Oh, we're so busy, we need another, material handler, whatever it is. We need another loader. Well, if you understand and have good visibility into that asset utilization rate, and you know how much you're actually using that asset a day, you could say, well, you're only using this actually 4 hours a day. Well, what are you doing the other 4 or 6 hours a day with this asset? So, you can make decisions to buy, not to buy, to redeploy assets with good data.
I mean, it's so important, and that data is really hard to get. I mean, it's easier now than it was, but I'm thinking when I was, previously doing it in the yards, I mean, I used to have to work out my cost per ton. And it's quite easy. You can take your, the cost of goods sold, and you can take the purchase price of what you paid for that metal to come in, and you can take your overhead and you can divide it by the total volume, and you can do all these different ways. But actually, if you are using a baler to bale specific aluminum, and that thing's costing you a lot of money, you need to allocate those costs, those expenses against the product that you're buying. Because, like you say, I mean, I know from my previous business in New Zealand, we tracked our maintenance, but we didn't track it per asset. So I would just take it at the end of the month, and I would say, well, this was the overall cost of maintenance divided by the volume, and that's what my maintenance is per ton. But as soon as you actually go, well, hold on, I mean, I'm now allocating those costs against material that isn't even needing to be processed, and now I'm not maybe as competitive when I'm buying, because I'm saying, well, my overhead is this expense. But if I went and said, based on that specific commodity, that grade, it's costing me this much, I'm like, well, first of all, I either need to drop my buying price, or I need to sell for more, which isn't so easy, or I actually need to just either buy a new piece of equipment or sort out whatever's happening on the maintenance side, because that data can help you make those decisions. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people come in and go, well, this is my maintenance cost. And it's a great point you use, that data can help us solve that issue.
It's a very interesting thing you brought up. And the way I like to look at it is to put my assets into cost centers, whether it's a shredding cost center, a downstream cost center, a transportation cost center, ferrous cost center, non-ferrous processing, scale, whatever it is. Because when you look at your maintenance costs and it's all jumbled into one, maintenance, on your P&L, it's sort of hard to distinguish from that without getting the detail. And then it's another question: how do you get to that detail if you don't have things allocated properly, right? So it's really breaking these assets down into individual cost centers, which really helps you determine your cost per ton on a maintenance basis, for these different various cost centers or moving parts around our yard. So that's something it's a very good point that you brought up, and something that I think more people should do, so they can narrow down the costs down to individual cost centers, like the baler, right? What are the assets that I have deployed at the baler? It's not just the baler. It's maybe a material handler or a skid steer or a loader, whatever you're using to load it. These are the assets that I have around here. And these all of these have to be included in my baling costs, not just my baler, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But then, it becomes tricky as well with your maintenance team. So you can outsource it, which makes it easier to track. But when you have your own team, you actually need them to to be tracking how much time they're spending on each piece of equipment. And it takes you back to that whole preventative thing. And what did you call it? Making it up.
I said pencil whipping.
Exactly.
Yep.
Now, I feel
there's an Americanism for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to use that now. So with the pencil whipping, I think it's the same when you ask your maintenance team to say how much time did they allocate to the equipment. Often it's the end of the month and they go, it was about 10% on that and 20% on that and whatever else, where that data, if it's accurate, is really helpful, because sometimes you've also got, 2 extra people in your maintenance team that have been hired and they're pretty much working on one baler all the time. You're not even factoring in that cost against that piece of equipment. So really hard to make good decisions without that data.
100%. 100%. It's even harder to do it the manual way. And believe me, people did it for a long time the manual way. It's possible. You've got to be extremely disciplined and have, good written program in place and good training to make sure that those costs get allocated. But as you know, with the power of technology, all those things, you train on a new software perhaps or a new system, and those, things like time tracking, it happens automatically, clock in, clock out, right? So a lot of those costs can be captured by the use of technology.
So not everybody who listens to Born Scrappy necessarily has a shredder or has a huge amount of equipment. So what about the smaller yards? The yards that have baler, they've got shears, and they've got even smaller than that. What about if they've just got a few trucks? How can they implement an effective fleet management strategy, which isn't super expensive?
Yeah, there are ways, obviously. The first thing I would say is, have a plan. Whether it should probably be written, you should probably figure out your own company's workflow. This doesn't have to be something in some software that you have to do, but write it down, whether it's on a big board storming with your team. If you're a small team, hey, who's operating this? What's going to happen? What's this operator's responsibility? Does he take a picture with his phone? Does he call his manager? How do we get a plan in place? So it's having that plan, maybe brainstorming about a plan, train your people. If you have a mechanic on staff or you're the owner operator, and it's tough. I know it is, but you're going to hire somebody and put them on a forklift. Maybe that's a new forklift, and forklifts are so expensive nowadays. They're a lot more expensive than they used to be. But even if it's used, train them on how to inspect it and what to look for before you send them on their way. And then certainly, even if I'm a small guy, it takes 10 or 15 minutes to inspect that equipment before they jump on it in the morning. There's even just sort of visual walk around things that you can do. If you park the equipment in the same spot every day, right? It's looking to see if you see any leaks under that, right? So I would say, to kind of sum it up, is to have a plan, to train your people, and to at least at minimum inspect your equipment every day, even if it's on the pencil and paper, and make somebody responsible for it. If you're the owner operator, you wear a lot of hats. It's probably going to be you. So it's one other thing that you're going to have to do, but it'll even a system like this will save you money in the long run.
I think it's fantastic. I think having a plan, training, and accountability, to me, is like, that's basics, and it doesn't have to cost you anything, right? And that's exactly what we're saying here. It's like, well, you could start tomorrow, document a plan. What does everybody need to do? Does everybody understand their role? Make sure they're trained in it. They understand what they need to do, and make sure that there's some form of accountability. So this person is handling that. That is their job. And if they're not doing it, you can identify they didn't do it. If you need to, you can check in whether it's a file that you're keeping or whatever it might be. I think that's a great 3-step plan or 3-step strategy to start working on for anybody that's out there, 100%. And I guess we did touch on it as well, though, but is there any other examples of a maintenance program helping you create a safer work environment? We always try and delve into safety where we can, because it's absolutely so key to everything we do. But is there any way that you think, other than the seatbelt example or the rear view camera, the rear cameras, Any other way that you think safety plays a part, or we can be help the environment, help safety in the industry?
Well, I think a well-maintained facility and a well-maintained piece of equipment, this is a generality here, but if you walk into a facility and you see that it's well-maintained, you see equipment that's clean, and believe me, that's effort. That's a lot of effort. If you see a clean piece of equipment and a clean facility, generally those places are safer places. So I think that, just by keeping your room clean, making your bed every day, and again, I know I used to own a small scrapyard, so I know how difficult this is, but housekeeping and cleanliness and taking care of these things, keeping things clean. Like I tell my kids, make your bed, put your dishes away, take out the trash. I mean, these little things go a long way. So you can start managing by walking around, as I've been told in the past, right? Visually, if things look out of order, they probably are. So I think, and when it leads to the safety aspect, right? Not only these things are the cleaner facilities, the cleaner equipment tend to be safer environments for everybody.
Yeah, I actually saw it in your yard as well. Totally agree with that. Keep a clean yard, you have a safe yard. So yeah, that's a good one. What about collaboration between the operators and the mechanics? Like, how important is that? If the mechanics are overseeing it, should they be jumping in? Do they need the operators? Like, how have you seen that work best?
From what I've seen is people do it, in a couple of different ways. Some people have, the management or a manager in between, sort of the operators and the mechanic, whether it's a yard manager or a maintenance manager. You have someone who is responsible for calling the ball. And I would say that the most successful way is to have somebody who's responsible. They don't have to necessarily be a maintenance expert. They have to have some base knowledge, but somebody who's sort of the quarterback. And whether you're using a maintenance software or you're using, the old pencil and paper Excel spreadsheet big board method, is to having somebody that's calling the ball, that's saying, okay, how do you get from problem reported to problem solved, right? And it's not as easy as, hey, this is broken, fix it, right? Do you have parts on the shelf? Is there another pressing issue? How are you going to get to that problem reported, problem solved? So the communication between mechanic and operator, yes, it is important. If you have someone in there in the middle, it's probably, for me, I've found that that's the best practice, right? Because everybody wants their machine fixed first or their issues addressed first. And, a manager, whether that's a maintenance manager or the facilities manager, may understand the priorities better so that they can deploy the mechanic. In a lot of cases, it's limited resources. So they can deploy that mechanic to the proper areas of need, and hopefully, if you get better in your maintenance program, hopefully you are becoming more proactive instead of always reacting and putting those fires out.
Yeah, it's that's interesting. Not everybody can hire somebody to slot in between, but that's not exactly what you're saying, right? You're saying find somebody within the business who can oversee what work is being done, what work is most important. Is there communication? Is it flowing from one end to the other? Probably in the small and medium-sized businesses, it's the owner-operator who is having to make sure that the operators are communicating what the issues are, and the maintenance team is taking heed. They are actually focused on dealing with the right thing at the right time, but they're not having to make that decision. So yeah, I would think the owner operator, but also I think there would be times in bigger companies. Yeah, you say a facilities manager, there might be somebody else slotting in there, right?
Yeah, it could be a facilities manager, and I've seen this so many times in the smaller businesses that it's typically a smart woman in the office. We have a lot of very smart women in the industry.
Yeah, give it to somebody who has the ability to manage it, because it is that important as well that it is being managed. I think the key thing is it doesn't matter who it is. Make sure the person has the ability and the bandwidth that they can actually spend some time doing it, because just don't let it fall to the wayside, because it's that important.
Absolutely.
What emerging trends are you seeing with regards to technology? And obviously, I think it's worth you telling us a little bit about uptime as well, but also what just general trends are you seeing with technology that can help us with maintenance in our industry specifically, and whether it's come from other industries or what there might be out there, which you hope does come. What are you seeing?
Well, with specific regards to maintenance, I mean, I think, AI is going to be a huge thing across just about everything we can think of and touch. So I think artificial intelligence is going to make its way into all of our softwares, whether it's just searching the web or softwares we use for our scrap purchasing and sales. And certainly on the maintenance side, I think AI, I don't even know exactly what it's going to do or can do, but I'm sure, there will be some tremendous strides made over the next couple of years with leveraging the power of AI within my software. I'm sure. And I think machine learning, learning when machines fail, that's, you have to collect data for a long period of time and find commonalities in failure rates. So you can, go from preventative, or reactive to preventative to, prescriptive or predictive maintenance, right? So understanding when things are going to fail before they're even causing you any problems. So I think those are some of the things that really excite me about tackling this problem vis-a-vis uptime PM.
And I mean, it's interesting because so much of the technology that's coming out needs data behind it. Like you speak about, until you've got a whole lot of data on something, you can't really make better decisions. But it's getting that data. We've got to get it out of pen and paper and get it into systems so that we can mine that data, bringing it all together and then making better decisions from it. So but we need that data. We need some systems that we are putting things in, and that brings us to Uptime PM, which is a maintenance program. Actually, talk us through what it is. But the idea, what I was going to say was, it's somewhere where you having data starting to go into that in the future when you want to make better decisions. Well, that's got your data, and we can use AI to pull out all the information for it and give you recommendations of what you should do next.
Yeah. So Uptime PM is a completely web-based, cloud-based maintenance management software platform. You have the web dashboard, which is your command center. This is where all your data gets aggregated. And we have a native mobile app. So, you can actually create infinitely customizable inspections on any sort of asset that you can think of. And now, instead of that pencil whipping, you can now have your people do their inspections on a mobile app, take pictures, enter notes. Once problems are reported, emails go out. Work order items get aggregated to a list. So you now see this list of, your to-do list, right? From that to-do list, you can now create work orders. Those work orders can be assigned to, a mechanic. They can do them digitally on the mobile app. They can also do them on the web app. Record their time, record your parts that you're putting on there. Any extraneous costs. If you outsource it to a third party, not everybody has mechanics. You outsource it to a third party. It's capturing that data into, an all catch-all cost, keeping those invoices together. And then once again, like all of that data is centralized now. Everything on my material handler, my Hyundai Cinnabogin material handler, all that data is always there forever. So I also think there's going to be a big benefit in the resale of equipment, right? So having this digital maintenance history for the entire life of an asset, I can now say, hey, I want to sell this asset. Here's my maintenance history. Here's all the times I've inspected it. And somebody can have sort of a better sense of, that you took care of this piece of equipment and maybe whether you're selling it to an independent party or someone else, they have confidence that this was taken care of. This is in a digital format that we're not altering, right? So
yeah, that's brilliant. I hadn't even thought of that. Like, not one stage did I think to myself, well, actually, you want all the history for when you do decide to swap it out. Somebody will want to buy it, but you'll get a better price if we actually can identify this is the exact history that this piece of equipment has had. Yeah, that's really good. I think there's a huge, huge place for that in the industry. I'm going to have to call this short, though, because we are running out of time, and I think we could have carried on speaking, and there was a lot more to get through. But I have one question before we get onto the quick fire getting to know you questions. Who would you like to hear next on Born Scrappy?
I'm going to call out one of my buddies, Sam Bacon, who has a really awesome business up in Atlanta. He's on the scrap side, and he has a demolition company. So I think circling the demolition perspective into this would be really cool.
Yeah, cool. Okay. You might have to make an introduction. Don't think I know him, but sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Quick fire round. Tell us a little bit about you. What's your favorite TV show or movie?
Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, so good. Still one of my favorite songs. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am. Anyway,
Stuck in the middle with Stu.
You go very good, Just. Look at you go. All right. Favorite place to visit?
Bodrum, Turkey.
Nice. Haven't been to Bodrum. Spent some time in Istanbul. Yeah, awesome. Favorite book?
You're always a product of the most recent book. AWOL Along the Appalachian Trail is an awesome book.
Okay, sounds good. AWOL, did you say?
AWOL. That was his
Nice.
trail name.
Yeah, awesome. And lastly, have you got a favorite quote?
Be yourself because everybody else is already taken.
Yeah, so good. Love it. Just, it's been lots of fun. I think you added great value. It's awesome to hear about what you're doing. I obviously have a passion for it as well, technology in our industry. So just thanks for being on Born Scrappy. That was awesome.
Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.